Okay, my name is Ryan Clark. My company is called Clark College Funding. I've helped thousands of families just like yourself throughout the Carolinas, throughout the United States really, but mostly in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. I do have families that come see me from Asheville, from Greensboro, from High Point, from Fayetteville, from Columbia, South Carolina. I do this presentation 4 or 5 times a month. I get paid to do this presentation for CPAs, for lawyers, for continuing education courses, and they pay me a lot of money to do that. You guys are getting it for free, so congratulations. This is going to be an exciting day because I think it's really going to change your lives. Because we're really going to show you today how we can help reduce this cost of college. So what are we going to talk about today? Talk a little bit about today's college cost. We're going to talk about the standardized test just a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about how the best way to select a college, because that's changed dramatically, and how colleges select students now. Okay. Also, a little bit about the admissions discussions, what you need to be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, a timeline for success, and some case studies of actual parents that I've worked with and how successful they've been. But before I get started, let me tell you about myself. I grew up here in North Carolina, in a small town called Rayford, North Carolina, in Hoke County. Anyone ever heard of that? You have? Wow, surprisingly. I'm sorry? Oh, Rashford. Okay, he's one of my neighbors growing up. She knows Rayford is a small farming community out in the middle of nowhere, right? Chicken farm, that's right. Turkey's House of Rayford. Well, my mother was a teacher and principal there for 35 years. She's still doing it part-time. My father was an educator, and I'm married to a teacher. It's been in my generations, it's been in my blood for a long time. Well, I went off to college at the United States Merchant Marine Academy, one of the 5 federal academies in the United States. Graduated with a Marine Systems Engineering degree, an officer in the Navy, an officer in the Coast Guard as well. Upon graduation, I started working for 2 international companies, one called Sealand. Anyone ever heard of Sealand? Yeah. And General Electric was the second company that I started working with. And General Electric was kind enough for me to go back and pay for me to go back and get my MBA. So I completed my MBA at Queen's University here in Charlotte, at the McCall School of Business. And I thought back when I was getting my MBA, I said, you know, I got to work for another 30, 40 years for the rest of my life. I better find out what I really want to do. Because when I got up in the morning, I didn't have passion to go to my job. I'll be honest with you. So I looked back and I said, what do I love doing? I said, I love teaching, I love working with parents. But I didn't really want to be a teacher. You know, I've seen that. I've seen my parents do it. I've seen my mom do it. It's a tough job. So I looked back and I thought back. I said, what really did I like doing? How did I like being involved? And I thought back of my older brother. I have an older brother who's 4 years older than I am. So when he was a senior in high school, I was in 8th grade. So when I became a freshman in high school, he was a freshman in college. Well, my brother was really smart. I had a lot to live up to. Top 10% in his class, Eagle Scout, National Honor Society, you name it. So my mom and dad thought he would get a lot of money for college. They were wrong. He went off to college, but he didn't get much money. He didn't get much aid. For my mom and dad, who were working middle-class families, that was really tough. Really tough. But they were very excited the first year. First year, no problem. They were taking out loans. They could get things done. But as he got older and went through college, I started getting older and going through high school at the same time, obviously, and I could hear the discussions around the table, mostly about paying for college. Because it got more expensive year after year after year taking out these Parent Plus loans. And what used to be $300 a month now is about $900 a month, almost as much as their mortgage. And they knew I was right behind it, right behind. And they said, Ryan, they tried to shield me from these discussions, but I could hear it. It was a huge concern for them. They didn't know how they were going to pay for me to go to college and my brother's college as well. Well, that's one of the reasons why I went to the academy. So they didn't have to pay for college, luckily. So when I started thinking about what I could do, how I could start my business, that was it. So since 2003, I've been helping families helping them with reducing the cost of college and picking the right colleges. Okay? So let's start talking about today's college cost. Does anyone know what the average public university cost is? Someone raise their hand and let me know. And I'm talking about top of the line cost, meaning if you added in tuition in fees, in room and board, in books, how much is it going to cost for 1 year at a state school? I'm sorry? 20. You're close. That's right, we're in that area, 20 to 15, right? It's 13.5 here. My guesstimation this year is probably another $1,000 to that. So we're looking at 15,000. What about for a private school, your average private school? Any guesses?
33, 50.
Yeah, we're in the ballpark. 33, 25, right? Now what about your elite private schools?
40.
Yeah, like Duke's. 40s, 50s, that's right. We're in the 40s and 50s now, guys. Now, when I was speaking with a college counselor the other day, a representative from a college, excuse me, he said, Ron, you should use the example of paying for a new car. And I never thought about that. Because really, parents are going to pay anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 a year. And that's like buying a new car every year for 4 years. For most parents, is anyone here going to have more than one in college? Yeah? So we're not buying 4 cars, are we? We might be buying 8 cars. We could have a used car lot or a new car lot in front of our house. So this is very, very expensive. Not all colleges created equal, so we got to do our homework. Okay? But I want to remind my parents right now, this is not necessarily what you pay. This is what I call sticker price. It's like going to the new car lot and seeing the sticker on the price. If you don't do this the right way, you might pay sticker price. But I'm going to teach you today, if you do this the right way, we could pay what I call the wholesale price, okay? Not the retail price. So, before we talk a little bit more about that, I'd briefly like to talk about the SAT and the ACT, because it's such a huge component of getting into college. Everyone knows about the new SAT now, right? How it's structured, so I don't have to talk about that. But I do like briefly talking about the ACT. Is everyone familiar with the ACT? Yeses and nos. I see some nos and yeses. Okay, good. That's why I bring this up. Because I suggest your son and daughter take both. Take them both. Why? Because 99% of the colleges out there, or 98% of the colleges, will take either the SAT score or either the ACT score. And my find is a third of my students do better on the ACT. A third of my students do better on the SAT, and a third do about the same. So what if one of your students is one of the ones that do better on the ACT? Well, guess what? Colleges will take either or. And it's a completely different type of test. Completely different. SAT is a more reasoning-based test. It's a longer test. ACT is not. ACT has some science in it, which the SAT does not. It's a completely different type of test. So what I suggest you guys do, take the ACT once, take the SAT once, see which one you do better on, or see which one you like better, and that's the one you want to take multiple times. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. How many times do you think we should take the SAT or ACT? Any guesses? 3. At least 2. At least 2, right? I would say 2 to 4 times is a good number. Studies have shown if you take it more than 4 times, you're probably not going to improve very much. Only time I would suggest taking it more than 4 times is if you need to get a minimum score to get a scholarship, and you're right there at it. You're very, very close. You know, you need to get a 28 on the, I'm just making up numbers. You need to make a 28 on the ACT to get in-state tuition at Clemson, and you're at 27. Well, you might want to take it 5 times. Does that make sense? Because that could be worth $15,000 a year. I like talking about this as well. Can anyone tell me how much, from looking at this chart, look at the large state university, can anyone tell me how much emphasis these large state universities puts on the SAT score? Someone shout it out for me.
45%.
45%. Think about that. You're looking over your entire transcript, but almost half of it is based upon an SAT or an SAT score. That's huge, is it not? But look at the smaller private colleges. Can anyone see that? What is that telling us? 25%. It's just a quarter. So if your son and daughter, like myself, isn't a great test taker, that's okay. But that does mean we have to have some private schools on our list, does it not? But I know what you're thinking. You're saying, Ryan, you just showed me this college cost here. These private costs can cost 2 or 3 times as much as these state schools. Not necessarily true. If you do this the right way, we can bring that college cost down to what it costs to go to a state school or below. Or below. So that's why, if we're not a great test taker, we need to have some private schools on our list. Students, how many of you guys, and I'm asking the students here, of all the children in the United States, if you had to put a percentage, how many do you think actually study for the SAT or the ACT? 25%? Anyone else? It's lower than that. 10. It's about 5%. 95% of the kids do not study for the SAT or ACT. It takes about 12 years to get a good GPA. It takes about 2 months to really study for an SAT and get a good score.
Did you say 95%?
95 do not study, approximately. Yeah. You need to study.
Why is that so laziness?
Who knows? And that's why I'm trying to emphasize the point is that, we got to study for it. This is a huge test. Got to study for it. Well, how do you study? Well, there's a lot of different ways we can use to study. We can check out books from the library. We have online courses that we can take. We can get DVDs. We can go to prompted courses. Well, parents ask me all the time, well, which one works, Ryan? Because some of these courses can cost thousands of dollars. Well, it really depends on your son and daughter. I'll be honest with you. They all work. If your son and daughter can sit in front of a room or sit in front of a computer, those books, those DVDs work fine. But if they need to be in a situation, in a classroom situation, maybe the practical course is better. They all work. You just need to find out how your son and daughter is motivated, and to get if they're self-motivated, some of these books, CDs work fine. So I've studied. I've got a 920 on my SAT. I scored a 1020, 1140, 1440. Parents ask me all the time, well, how did I do? I scored a 980. How did I do? Well, it's all relative. It's all relative because not all colleges, again, are looking for the highest SAT score. Not all colleges are looking for the same type of student. A student that is recruited by MIT is not the same student that's recruited by University of Memphis. Okay. There are colleges out there that love to take A, B students, C students, put them in smaller classes, and build them up to A+ students by the time they graduate. Different colleges have different missions. Different colleges have different goals. Different colleges recruit different types of students. So it's all relative to the type of college and where your son and daughter is applying to. What I typically find is when I work with my students and parents, is that what you're looking for in a college and what your son and daughter are looking for in a college can be completely different. So what I suggest you do, now I didn't get every one of these, every one of the categories that we could put up here, but I covered pretty much all of them. You take this home and you put this in a spreadsheet, a computer, piece of paper, whatever it may be, and then you sit down and you take your top 5 criteria, and your son and daughter take their top 5 criteria, and then you compare it in the two. So why don't we just take, 60 seconds here. Mom's dead, since I have most of you here. Why don't you look through those real quick and just give me your top 2 criteria of selecting a college for your son and daughter. There's no right or wrong answer here. They're all important, but everyone's different. Someone give me their top 2, just out of curiosity. No right or wrong answer here? I'd just like to take a survey. Yes, sir.
What do they want to major in?
Major? Absolutely. Academic programs? Right. What else?
Safety.
Safety? Sure. Cost? Financial aid? Yeah, they're all important, right? We don't want our son or daughter to go to an unsafe school, and that's the point. But again, what I typically find is what your son and daughter are looking for in a college and what you're looking for in a college can be completely different, and you need to know that. Now, when I sit down with my students and parents, I usually get their initial list of colleges, and I make up a list. And this is my, everyone's heard of David Letterman's top 10 list, right? And this is my top 10 list, what I hear my students and parents tell me. So when I ask my students, and my girl students specifically, I go, why did you pick this school? And sometimes they'll tell me, well, it's where my boyfriend's at. or that's where he wants to go to school. And the guys do the exact same thing. It's where the girlfriends are at, or that's where she's thinking about going to school. I get a lot of girls doing this for some reason. We're all going to apply to App State, right? We're all going to apply to college or Charleston. My 5 best friends are going to go there. Education is cool. What do I mean by that? Usually colleges around the beach show up on it. UNC Wilmington, University of Miami. It's a cool place to be. I heard this once. I had to put it in there. It's a party school, but don't tell Dad. Good sports teams. I hear that a lot. You know, Notre Dame pops up all the time. Chapel Hill pops up all the time. So why do you like that school? Why do you love Notre Dame? Because Notre Dame's a great school, by the way. They go, well, Ryan, I love the football team. My father's been a huge football fan for all his life. We watch it every Saturday. I said, great. So what else do you like about the school? I love the football team. I tell you, man, those uniforms are great. When I asked my parents, I said, why do you want your son and daughter to go to that school? And they say, well, it's fairly cheap there, Ryan. They get a good education, right? And then usually it's the money, and 3 is money. It's usually in that order. Quality of education. I went to school there, so I know they'll have a good time there. Moms tell me this all the time. 2-hour driving distance around Charlotte. Whatever you hit in there, that's where they can go to school. I see a lot of mothers shaking their hands. Window sticker I had a father said, you know, when my son's driving his nice new Mercedes and he has Duke on the back, he'll be looking good. Well, obviously, this is not the best approach to pick a college. Would you all agree? Especially when we're spending this type of money, $15,000 to $50,000 a year. Right? And not all colleges are created equal. But this is what I love to hear all my students and parents tell me. Someone yelled, I'll use Wake Forest, since we have a Wake Forest person here. I'd love to attend Wake Forest University. It is a great opportunity for me to study law. In fact, this university is well known for its outstanding faculty and is credited for being one of the best universities to study law. What does this tell me? Well, it tells me, one, that the student has thought about what they want to study in school before they get into college. It also tells me they've done a little research, that not only did they look at the college, but they looked at that particular major, and they knew that this college puts a lot of money and resources in that particular major. Does that make sense? They don't use the reputation of the entire school. They use the resources for that particular major. And that's a big difference. Does that make sense, guys? I had a young man the other day who wants to go into international business. Does anyone know one of the top 2 or 3 colleges in the United States for international business is?
Thunderbird.
I'm sorry?
Thunderbird.
Thunderbird, that's one of them. Anyone else locally? Not Queens. It's not UNC Charlotte. It's actually University of South Carolina. That's what I mean. If you're studying international business, you don't want to leave University of South Carolina off your list if that's the right size, right location. You see what I mean? You can't use the reputation of the entire school, not that University of South Carolina has a bad reputation, mind you, but you need to look at that particular major. Does that make sense? It's because some colleges put a lot of money in their business department, but not so much in their communications department. And if your son and daughter is going into the communications department, that might not be a great fit. Oh, and by the way, guys, do you know there are colleges out there that will compete for your son and daughter? Oh, yes. They will compete for your son and daughter if you do this the right way. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Yes, ma'am?
What if your son or daughter doesn't know what they want to study?
That's a great. Give me 5 minutes and I'll answer that question. She asked, what if our son and daughter has no idea what they want to do or what they want to study? And that's pretty common because I was just like that. Again, I have an engineering degree. I'm not doing any engineering. I had no idea. Okay? But we'll talk about that. Great question. Now, what are the selective universities looking for now? Well, they're going more in depth than they were 10, 15 years ago. More in depth. So not only are they looking at your GPA, and your class rank, and your SAT score, but they're looking to see how they're correlated. You know, did you score great on your SAT, but are you in the top or the bottom third of your GPA or class rank? What does that tell them to college, or vice versa? They'll look at your transcript and see, did you take any honors courses? Did you take any IB courses or AP courses? If so, how many did you take? Did you push yourself, or did you just try to get the easy A? How many were available? And so they're really going in more in depth. Why? Because the class of 2012, that is the largest class ever graduated in the United States. So between now and 2012, these are the largest classes ever graduating from college, from high school, going off to college in the United States. So what does that mean, guys? More competition. So they can pick and choose who they want. So they're going into more detail. Essays are very important. Even though there's an SAT, a writing section, a lot of colleges don't even look at that. Don't even look at the writing section of the SAT. And some that do, they just use it to put you in their freshman English class. But the essays are still important. A lot of colleges say, Ryan, the essay on our application is like a open book test. You can take as long as you want to do it, and it better be good. Students don't try to write it the night before, and parents don't do it for them. Parents, make sure you read it, make sure you take their time, have someone at the high school read it, like an English teacher or guidance counselor, and start early. Start early. Okay. A fit. Fit is a good way to determine if that college is going to want you or not. Well, I'm being very general here, but if you're in the top 25% of their freshman class of last year, or if you look at the school's details or statistics, and you're in the top 25% of their SAT or the GPA, that's a great fit, generally. Does that make sense, guys? No. Display of student interest is extremely important, especially for your small private colleges. Why? Because in one hit of a button, electronically now, your son and daughter can apply to 60 colleges. One hit of a button, boop, there goes the applications. So colleges really want to know, is this young man, this young lady serious about going to my school? So they're going to check everything. They're going to look to see, is it mom and dad calling, or is it the son or daughter calling to ask questions? Who do you think they want to hear from? That's right, sons and daughters, guys. If you have a question, make them call. Don't you call. Don't you dare call. A lot of colleges, they'll make note every time you call and put it in their file. Visits. Visits are very important. They track who comes and visit. So when you go visit, come back, get a nice card from the financial aid office or the admissions office, preferably. Send a nice thank you email or send a nice thank you letter. A lot of times they'll put this in a file every time you make communications with these colleges. College fairs. Anyone been to a college fair yet? Yeah? When you go to the college fair, let's say you want to attend Davidson College up the street. You go to the representative of Davidson College and say, hello, my name is Ryan Clark. I cannot wait to attend your school. Can I get some information? Thank you very much. How about your card? Thank you. What do? You go home and send them a nice thank you note. And then a month later, if they're in, Butler High School or Lake Norman High, you go over there and say, hey, you remember me? Did you get my card? My name is Ryan Clark. I really want to attend your school. So a lot of these reps, especially in these small private schools, they're the ones sitting on these tables trying to determine who gets into these colleges. And if they have a file on you, well, that will certainly separate you from students they don't even know. Does that make sense, guys? Showing interest is very, very important, especially with the smaller private schools. Strength of recommendations. Again, I've worked with teachers all my life, and what I can find is that about 5 teachers in every high school, all the kids go to get letters of recommendation. Those are the cool teachers. Right? And guess what? Do you think most students wait till last minute, or they give the teachers plenty of time to write these letter recommendations? It's last minute. I need this tomorrow, Miss Baker. Can you give this to me by Tuesday? She says, yeah, no problem, Ryan. She goes to her Word program. She picks up her typical student recommendation, changes it from Jeff and puts in Ryan, and hits print. Boop, here you go. Well, you need a little bit more than that. You want something to stand out. Well, what do? Well, you got to give these students, these teachers some meat to add to these letters of recommendation. Well, what I suggest you do is do a student resume. What have I done over the last 4 years? Because a lot of these teachers know you in class but they don't necessarily know what you've done in school, what you've done in church, what you've done outside of school, what you've done athletically. Does that make sense? Have you been in Scouts? Have you volunteered? Have you been working? I've been working for Burger King for the last 4 years. Right now I'm, assistant manager or whatever it is. So when you give the letters of recommendation, say, here's my resume too, and that way she can say, or he can say, yes, Ryan is great, I love him, he's wonderful in my class, and guess what, he's wonderful in the community, and he's also great in Scouts, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense, guys? Do you have a question? Yes, there's plenty online. If you just put in student resume template, and if you can't find one, you can email me and I can give you one as well. Diversity, this is the time to shout it out, guys. If you're from Iceland, you need to say it. Don't be shy. This is the time to shout it out. 5 important questions to ask a university. So when you're going for these college visitations, I want you to ask these questions. Number 1, what is your most important admissions criteria, and how is it ranked? Are you going to look at my SAT first, and then my GPA, and then my class rank, and then my extracurricular activities? Or they might say, you know what, extracurricular activities is number 1 for us. We want to see community service. And then we're going to look at your GPA, and then we're going to look at your class rank, and then maybe your SAT score. Every college is different. How many of your students graduate on time? On time. You need to ask them what on time means. Because a lot of colleges don't quote 4-year graduation rates. They will quote 5 years, 6 years, and sometimes even more, 7, 8 years. So you need to ask them, how many are graduating in 6 years or 4 years? And you also need to know how many come back after the freshman year. So retention rate. Is there a lot of freshmen not coming back? Why is that? If so, you need to know why. Is it construction going on near the freshman dorm? Is the hot water not working? Is the food terrible? Is the community around the college changing? These are things that are very, very important. It can make a huge difference. What is enrollment yield? Enrollment yield is an important number. Enrollment yield tells a college how many, how many empty seats that they have to fill. Empty seats are very, very important. These colleges have huge overheads, and they need paying customers every year to come in. So they track it. So every year they'll change things. They'll change marketing campaigns. They'll change how they try to recruit students. Some years it works great. Some years it doesn't work so great. So if you know what their enrollment yield is, and you know it's dipped the year before, that means next year, or maybe the year that your son and daughter is getting ready to go off to college, they're going to have to recruit more freshmen to come in because they had a dip last year. Does that make sense? Because they got to fill not only the average freshman class, but they have to have more to make up from last year's class. Well, how do a lot of colleges recruit more students? Sometimes they give out more money. So that could give you a good indication that you might get some good financial aid. So rules of thumb, very important. Be an educated consumer. Use as many resources out there as possible to help you make this decision. Use the internet, but also know the limitations. If you just type in financial aid on the internet, there's gazillions of things that pop up. If you type in scholarship on Google, my gosh, you could spend a year just going through all the web pages. So when you're looking, make sure that they update their information, because a lot of these websites don't. And know the limitations as well. A lot of parents use Barron's and U.S. News World Report, use their rankings. Has anyone ever heard of those? Yeah. Well, Kimberly Clark's an acquaintance of mine. She does a good job at U.S. News World Report. They do the rankings every year. Well, she tells me that the information in there is at least a year old. And some of the information is just completely made up. Because the colleges aren't providing that information, so they just have to assume what those numbers are. So you could be looking at these rankings and they could be completely off. Right? So know the limitations. Okay. Another one I like to use, or talk about, is the College Foundation of North Carolina. Has everyone heard of the College Foundation of North Carolina? If you haven't, you will. They come to your high schools usually. They'll give a speech on filling out financial aid. And if you go to their website, there's a lot of great information on their website. But here's the kicker. The College Foundation is supported by the Colleges of North Carolina. It's a nonprofit organization supported by the Colleges of North Carolina. What does that mean? You're only going to get the good things about the Colleges of North Carolina on that website. You're not going to get the bad things. Does that make sense? And they are one of the largest lenders of college loans in North Carolina. So they're going to give you recommendation on financial aid. What do you think their recommendations are going to be about? How about our loans? Right? We got some great loans here. So again, great information, but know the limitations of each of the resources. Take a top-down approach. This is very important. And this is what we do with our students and parents that we work with. Very, very important. There's approximately over 4,000 colleges out there, guys. Over 4,000 colleges and universities in North America. There's no lack of colleges and universities. You need to start out with close to those 4,000 colleges and universities, and based upon the criteria that we just looked at, you want to narrow it down from there. Narrow it down to, let's say, 30 or so. Because any student gets overwhelmed looking at 4,000 colleges. But start with all of them and then narrow it down to 30 or so. And take those 30 and really do some in-depth research on those 30 and narrow it down to 10 or so from there. And those are the ones you want to go visit. Don't start out with 2 or 3 and work your way out. Why? Because you're going to miss some great colleges you've never even heard of. Happens all the time. Most students and parents know about 30% of all the colleges that are out there. Just in North Carolina, we have about 110 colleges just in North Carolina. I guarantee you don't know them all. And some of those, they just don't have huge marketing campaigns. Some of those don't have Division I basketball and football teams, and that's why you never heard of them. But if you go visit, you'll go, wow, what a great school. It has exactly what I'm looking for. So that's why you start from 4,000 approximately, 4,500, work your way down, because you'll find colleges you've never heard of. Does that make sense, guys? If you work your way out from 2 or 3, you're only going to hit the ones you know. Okay? And it's not going to give you enough. There's no substitute for a visit. So you've narrowed them down to your 10, right? That meets your criteria. You got to go visit. Not only to show interest, to really make sure if this is the right college for your son and daughter. Think when you guys were looking at apartments or homes, how many you actually went and visited before you decided which one it was going to be, right? And you went into one, you said, my gosh, look at this kitchen, it's too small. I wouldn't go here. And you went to the next one, you said, wow, this yard, I don't like this. And you went to the next one and said, oh, look at that neighbor. No way I'm going to live here. I mean, it's kind of like college. You got to go visit. It might look great on the internet, might look great on paper, but until you set foot on that college, you're really not going to know. Especially young ladies. Young ladies can tell you within 15 minutes usually if they like that college or not. I don't know what it is. It's just another sense that they have. You'll drive 3 hours. You'll walk out the door. She'll look around. She'll, no, I don't like it. Let's go. I'm done. And you're like, what, are you crazy? I just drove 3 hours. But it's the truth. It's a feeling that they have. Now, it's my experience with young men. It's a little bit different. You know, they'll drive for 3 hours. They'll go to the college and they go, wow, this is kind of nice. Yeah, there's girls here laying out on the lawn. I get food. Not too bad. They'll get to the next place. Wow, there's girls here too, and there's food here. That's not too bad. So it's a little bit different for guys. It takes a little bit longer sometimes, but you'll get there. Ensure that the college will want your student. Again, this is what I meant by fit. You know, generally, just being very general. If you're looking at the college, look at their details. Look what the average student scored on the SAT and the ACT and GPA and see where you're at. You know, are we in the bottom 25%? If so, that's probably not a good fit. Does that make sense? Because you might just struggle academically there, and you don't want to be in that situation just to try to maintain. You're staying up every night. Does that make sense, guys? And also, the colleges will say, you know, we're going to let you in, but you're kind of bringing down our averages. So that might not be a great fit. Okay, so I selected my 6 to 10 colleges, and by the way, I didn't tell you that, but you need to apply to 6 to 10 colleges, not 30 and not 3. 6 to 10. Public school and private schools. I know what you're thinking. You're saying, Ryan, What's this all those private schools? I'll show you in a minute, but you got to create this competition between these colleges. If you don't encourage these colleges to write you a check, they will not. Okay? 6 to 10 colleges. Creates competition. The privates need to know they're competing against the states need to know they're competing against the privates. Okay? So we've got our 6 to 10 colleges. Now what? What do we do now? Well, let me briefly talk about the admissions process. I know we've had some parents that have been through this. How many parents have already had a student go through this process? 1, 2. Guys, is it not crazy that every one of these colleges have different deadlines? Boy, it's easy to miss a date, right? Boy, it is really easy because every one of these colleges have different dates, different deadline dates, and you got to be on top of it. So get organized. Get organized now. Get your binders out. Have it separated for every college. Get spreadsheets out, because if you don't, you can easily miss some of these deadlines. Build a matrix on each one of these colleges. Stay on top of the dates. I can't emphasize that enough. Look for the requirements, because each college is a little bit different. Does this college require an essay? This one doesn't require an essay. When is it needed by? Do I need recommendations? I had a college last year that required 3 letters of recommendation. One from someone at the high school, one from someone at a church, and one from a parent. Interesting. Never seen that before. Every college is different. Some colleges now require the SAT-2 subject-based test. Has anyone ever heard of that? Yes. Your more elite private colleges require SAT-2 subject-based tests now. Some require 3. So if you're going to apply to, let's say, Boston College, for example, you might have to take an English, a math, and a science, in addition to the regular SAT or ACT score. So if you know you're going to apply to one of those schools, and I don't know, you're going to take the chemistry SAT subject-based test, and you're taking chemistry your junior year, when should you take this test? Yeah, right now. Don't wait till your senior year to take these tests, because you're going to forget all of it. Right? After your admissions, each of these colleges have different housing application, housing deadlines, so again, stay on top of the dates. Fine, our applications are in. Now this is where the parents start sweating. Whew. My son and daughter got into Purdue. My son and daughter got into Wake Forest, or whatever it may be. And then it's, how are we going to do this? How are we going to pay for this thing? Well, let's talk a little bit about this. I just miscellaneous pulled out some local college cost here. And this is per year. This is top of the line costs, meaning tuition, fees, room and board, books, miscellaneous expenses. You add them all together, this is how much it costs for 1 year. I also like showing parents these out-of-state schools. Sometimes the out-of-state schools can be more expensive than any private school you go to, and sometimes harder to get into. At some of these out-of-state schools, they are required to take 80% of their freshman class from that state. So you're in that other 20% of competing against students from all over the U.S. in some cases. Look at this number. 60% of all public university students graduate in 6 years. 60% graduate in 6 years. Would anyone like to take a guess at what the 4-year graduation rate is on average? That's right, it's 24%. Amazing. Now look at these numbers. You know, our budget, are we budgeting for 4 years, or should we budget for 6 years? Exactly. We want 4. We want 4, right? Okay. So let's talk about financial aid, because I don't think the colleges do a great job of this. And some high schools will invite the rep from a local university come to talk about financial aid. Boy, I think that's a huge mistake. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox on that. Let's talk about the 3 different types of financial aid. The first one I'm going to talk about today is merit aid. Merit aid is based upon the talent of the student. Everyone heard of merit aid, by the way? It could be anything from my son's a good basketball player, so he's going to get a basketball scholarship. It could be she's got a great voice, and so we're going to give them $5,000 to be in our course. It could be they're really smart in math, so we're going to give them a math scholarship. That's all considered merit aid. Okay? Let's say we have two students, and I'm a college, and I'm going to give out $20,000 in scholarship, and I've narrowed it down between these two students. Their GPAs are about the same. Their class rank's about the same. SAT's about the same. What do you think I'm going to look at next? Say that louder.
Extracurricular?
Everyone hear that? Extracurricular activities is what separates a lot of students. That's why they're so important. Extracurricular activities. Very, very important. And you still have time if you don't have them many. What colleges are looking for in extracurricular activities is that you showed dedication to a cause and you made a difference. Not that you were in the Spanish club one year, dropped out, that you were in the Key club one year, dropped out, you were in the whatever club one year and dropped out just to build a resume. They want to see you were in the Spanish club for 3 years, you became secretary, and you made a difference while you were there. That makes sense, guys? Showing some leadership. Now, I did put other under merit aid. So let's say those two students and their extracurricular activities are the same, right? Does anyone have any idea what I might look at next as a college? They've already made contact, sure, they'll come into play. But your income and assets can play a role in determining who gets merit aid. Now, colleges usually will never tell you that. They'll tell you till they're blue in the face. No, we don't look at income and assets when we're giving out merit aid. No, they do. A lot of them do anyway. And it's easy to prove. Let's talk about need-based aid. Because I have parents that make close to $200,000 get need-based aid. A lot of parents say, well, I'm not going to get need-based aid or I'm not going to get merit-based aid. Well, that's not necessarily true. This is the need-based aid formula. It hasn't changed much in the last 30, 40 years. There's 3 variables. First variable is the cost of attendance. How much does it cost to go to that school for 1 year? Again, tuition, fees, room and board, books. In this example, I'm guesstimating $26,000. Then the college and the university and the government will calculate what's called the expected family contribution, or the EFC number. Has anyone ever heard of that term before? Yes. Seniors, the parents have been through this F. Expected family contribution, or EFC is what I like to call it. The expected family contribution is a number that they will calculate to determine how much money they think you can afford to pay on a yearly basis. So the government might say, we think you can afford to pay $26,000 a year, $18,000 a year, $22,000 a year. Isn't it nice that they tell you how much they think you can afford to pay? All right.
How do they determine that?
How do they determine that? It's a great question. Give me 5 minutes, I'll answer that question, and if I don't, ask me again. Let's quickly look through this formula. So they'll know what the college costs. So let's say I'm going to a private school and it costs $26,000 a year. Then they subtract this family's ESC, or how much they think they can pay, which is 18. So the difference is $8,000. That is the maximum amount of need-based aid that you will receive. You can't get any more than that, need-based aid. Well, in some cases, let's say your son or daughter gets a scholarship, or maybe even a 529 plan in cases. Sometimes these colleges will reduce that aid dollar for dollar for what they consider an outside resource. So if your son and daughter gets a nice scholarship from the church or from the local grocery store, that could potentially reduce your need-based aid. So in this case, we reduced it by $2,000, so now our modified need-based is $6,000. Here's the good news, guys. There's a lot of money out there to help you pay for college. There is. There is a lot of money out there to help you pay for college. Now, these numbers change year to year. Last time I looked, it's about $100 billion. $100 billion, not a million, a billion with a B. Billion. Now, if you look at this graph, most of it does come in the form of federal loans, which is okay. They're okay loans. But you can see also some other forms of money. Right? We have state grants, institutional money, educational benefits. What didn't I put on here? Outside scholarships. You know what I mean by outside scholarships? Money not coming from the colleges. You know, the Burger King scholarship or the local church's scholarship. Those are outside scholarships. Coca-Cola scholarship, thank you. If you add all those up, every one of those up in the United States, it represents less than 1% of the total amount of money that's out there to help you pay for college. Where do most families spend the majority of their time looking for money? Outside scholarships. And that's okay. I do continue to urge you to look for that, but this is the low-hanging fruit. This money is easier to get because there's much more of it. But the colleges don't want to give it out if they don't have to. That's the trick. Okay? Especially this money. The second column here is called institutional money. There's about $20 billion out there. That's obviously changed a little bit this year. But approximately $20 billion. This is the college-owned money. The college's own money. This is the low-hanging fruit. This is the money we want to go after. Well, how do you go after it? First thing, to get any of this money, whether it be need-based aid, merit-based aid, the college's own money, you have to complete the financial aid forms. You are required to complete those forms. So even if you think you make too much money, complete the forms, because if you don't, you'll usually take your son and daughter out of the running to get any of this money. So the first form is the FAFSA form, free application for federal student aid. Usually you can complete this on January 1st of their senior year. That's the earliest you can complete this form, January 1st of their senior year. The next one is the financial aid profile form. This is used primarily by private colleges in addition to the FAFSA form, but there are some state schools that use this form as well. So for example, Chapel Hill in North Carolina requires you to fill out the FAFSA form and the profile form. Now there's a third form, and that's the college's own form. They can make up anything they want on this form. A lot of private schools have their own form. Some state schools have their own form. NC State, for example, in North Carolina, requires the FAFSA form and their own financial aid form. And guess what? Each one of these colleges, they have different dates. Different deadline dates. And it's really easy to miss those dates. In some colleges, you have to complete that profile form as early as November of their senior year. Early as November of the senior year. So if you're not on top of it, you could easily miss those dates. Okay? But you need to complete those forms, so that's why you got to be organized. Now I'm not going to go through all these urban legends. I'll just talk about a few of them today. There's no aid for middle-class families. That's absolutely false. I work with parents that make close to $1 million a year that get aid every year. Okay? There's aid out there if you do this the right way. Some other questions I usually get. My students' grades are too low. I only have an average student. I'm not going to get any. Not necessarily true. If you pick the right colleges and you position yourself the right way financially, you'll get some good money, even if we have an average student, because again, we're meeting the college and the child, and we're making this a good relationship. Matching the correct college to the correct child. Okay. I own my home. Does that hurt me? It depends. Some colleges think equity is an asset on your financial aid. Some colleges don't. And some limit how much equity they look into. It really depends. It's an easy process. I tell my parents, I'll let you make that decision. Colleges have empty seats to fill. Well, that's true. There are colleges out there that have empty seats to fill every year. We talked a little bit about that yield percentage, right? Some colleges build freshman classes in advance. That is true. So before your son and daughter applies, they know how many men, how many women, how many African American, how many white, how many American Indian, how many Asian, whatever, and they're just filling in the blanks. They're slotting you into those. Does that make sense? I have a 529 plan. I got it covered. And I tell my parents, so I'll be cautious with those. Because number one, they usually only cover tuition and fees. And number two, it could potentially count against you on financial aid depending on the college. So be cautious with those. Okay. I'm not going to go through most of these today, but if you want to know more about these educational tax credits and deductions, I want you to Google or Yahoo IRS publication 970. 970. And it'll bring that up. But basically, the Hope and Lifetime Learning Credit are credits that you can use to reduce your taxes. We have a student loan interest deduction. We have a tuition and fee deduction. And you also have penalty-free IRA, because I get this a lot at my workshops too. Parents ask me, say, Ryan, well, why don't I just take money out of my retirement plan to pay for college? I say, well, I'm not a big proponent of that, to be honest with you. And I'll tell you why. Number one, your son and daughter can get scholarships and loans in work study to pay for college. When you guys go for retirement, there's no bank's going to give you a loan for retirement. You're not going to get any scholarships. You only have a limited time to save for retirement. So be very cautious pulling money out of your retirement accounts. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. So this is what I wanted to talk about. I have a private school. I have a state school. And I've been telling you since the beginning of this workshop, you need to apply to some private schools. Now I'm going to show you why. Okay. Let's say that I have a $30,000 private school and a $17,000 state school. And my family's EFC is $10,000. So the need at the private school is $20,000. Does that make sense, guys? Pretty easy math. The need on the state school is $7,000. Just the subtraction of those two numbers. Here's where it makes a big difference. The private schools meet 100% of this need usually. So if you need 20, they're going to give you 20. If they need 15, they're going to give you 15. The state schools don't. They go, well, okay, you need 5? Well, I might give you half that. You got to come up with the rest. In the state of North Carolina, they usually meet about 30% of your need. So I'm being gracious here in this example. I'm using 60. Okay, so in this example, they're meeting 60% of the need. The rest of it, you just got to come up with somewhere. And how they meet your need is very important. The private schools tend to meet your need mostly in what I call gift aid, free money, money that doesn't have to be paid back. The state schools, when they give out your money for need, it usually comes in the form of loans. Okay? To be honest with you, is that really a need? Thank you, I got a loan. Wonderful. All right. So let's do the math. Okay? We have $10,000 of our EFC. That's how much the college thinks we're going to have to pay. So this is how much we're going to have to come up with. Okay? We have to add back any unmet need. The private colleges are meeting all our unmet needs, so that's zero. The states, you're just going to have to come up with this $2,800. So we've got to add back that in. Does that make sense? Now, that's certainly still not the total cost of college. We have loans, remember? We got to put this back in here. So let's add back in these loans that we got, what I call this self-help aid. The private college costs $14,000. The state college costs $14,900. That's a huge difference, right? The $30,000 is what you see. That is the sticker price when you look at these colleges. That's not necessarily what you pay. So in today's society, especially right now with hard economics times, most parents are sending their students to state schools, right? So these state schools are getting bombarded with applications. And what's going on with tax revenue right now? Is tax revenue up or down? Down. You think these state schools got a lot of extra money? No, they're cutting. So they're getting more applications, they got a lot less money. And the privates are going, hey, look at us. How about us? We got some money here. Yes, sir. Do you have a question? Total self-help. That's the self-help aid right here. This is loans and work study. Work study. Things that you're going to have to pay back while you're in school or out of school. Good question. Is this starting to make sense? Yes, ma'am.
The EFCs
Yes, the EFC is what's called the expected family contribution, and how they figured this out, how they determined this number, is in 2 slides. So let me talk about this real quick, and I'll come back to that. Is that fair? You're welcome. You can negotiate these financial aid offers. You can do it 2 ways. One, you can appeal. An appeal, well, you never use the term negotiate with college, by the way, but that's essentially what you can do. You can appeal the financial aid offer, especially if you had a financial hardship over the year, because they're going to look at last year's tax return when you fill out these financial aid information, and things can change a lot in a year. So if you lose a job or someone's house burnt down, you had a medical emergency, these are things you need to tell the college. But also if you have colleges competing for your son and they give you a better financial aid award package, you can appeal that too. Right? College A, guess what College B gave me? Yeah, you can do that. But you got to do it the right way. What is this EFC? Again, this EFC is the expected family contribution. They use the FAFSA form and the profile form and the college's own financial aid form. They collect your income and assets on those forms, and they use that information to calculate your expected family contribution, to determine how much money they think you can afford to pay. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
What's other savings?
Other savings could be CDs, could be money markets, could be anything.
In the child's name or?
Could in anybody's name. Just other savings. Does that make sense? Could be a 529 plan.
Well, your college savings is your 529.
Sure. Could be, hey, I have savings in my checking account, in my savings account, and then I have a college. But yeah, absolutely. What they don't look at is your retirement accounts. So when you're filling these forms out, make sure you don't add in your retirement accounts when they ask you about investments. That's a mistake a lot of parents do make.
That includes state retirement and
Yes, your pensions.
security?
Yes. They will ask you if you received any Social Security, so you have to list that. That's considered income. Look at these 2 families, Family A and Family B. Can anyone tell me the difference between these 2 families? Anyone see a difference here? That's right, that's right. That's what I was looking for. Family B is paying a lot less. How can that be? Well, again, you remember I told you a lot of high schools bring the college reps to come speak, talk about financial aid? They're never going to tell you about this at these workshops. But there are strategies you can put in place, legally and ethically, stated by the Department of Education, to reduce your EFC number. Let me repeat that. There are strategies you can put in place to reduce this EFC number legally and ethically. Do you think the colleges are going to encourage you to do that? No. It's like taking your tax returns to the IRS, because they'll do it for free. I don't know if you're going to get a lot of deductions if the IRS does it. And that's kind of like what parents are doing with these financial aid forms. You remember that CFNC I was telling you about? College Foundation, supported by the colleges? They'll give you great advice on filling these forms out, but they're never going to tell you strategies on how to reduce this. It's not in their best interest. Okay? It's like working with a CPA. Sometimes, or a tax accountant. They can put some strategies in place to reduce your taxes. Same thing here. What is this telling us? This is telling us that Family A is spending about $10,000 more per year, and that's every year that they're in college. Every year. So let's look at a timeline. Juniors, what should you be doing? Number one, if you haven't done any type of career aptitude test, this is the time to do it. Earlier you were asking me, what if my son doesn't know what they want to do, right? Or my daughter. That's okay. And I wouldn't expect for your son and daughter to know today what they're going to do for the rest of their lives, but they should be able to narrow it down. Okay? And you might be able to see some trends. What we do with our students and parents is we help them through this. We give them some tests, some aptitude tests, some career placement tests. Try to see some trends. Okay? Obviously, you've probably taken the PSAT already, right? Most of you have. If you have, do it. Most of you took it back in October. Begin your college search now. This is the time, juniors. This is when you want to do all the work. Don't wait till your senior year. It's too late then. This is the time to do it. This is when you want to do visits. This is when you want to start narrowing down the college. Right now. That's why I wanted to get you guys in here right now. Check on your recommendations, your high school path, begin your resume. Go ahead and start doing that. Start your college visits. Perfect time to do that. Spring break coming up here in the next week. Whoo, perfect time. Do some visits. Senior year, finish strong academically. Your junior year, take your SAT and ACT again. Start some more college visits, because if you can visit while the kids are in college, I suggest that. You get a better feel of what college life is like. Okay? September through November, that's when you're probably going to be sending out most of your resumes and your applications. You might also need to fill out a financial aid form then, so make sure about that. And does anyone remember the first time you can send out your FAFSA form? January 1st. It's very important, because a lot of this money's first come, first served, so don't wait till April 15th. Yes, ma'am.
You said January 1st of their senior year, but then you said November. Some of it says November before January.
That's right. That's right. And this November, if your son or daughter's a junior, it's this November.
Well, some of those were due prior to the FAFSA.
That's right. We got two different forms, or three different forms, right? We have the profile form, we have the FAFSA form, and we have the college's own form. Good question. The FAFSA form you cannot send out until January 1st. They won't take it. But some colleges on the profile form, they'll ask for it as early as November. So you might have to do that a lot earlier. Does that make sense, guys? You just got to check with each college. And some colleges have their own financial aid form. And so you just don't want to miss those days. Great question.
What's November for juniors again?
November, financial aid profile form. Yep. Housing applications. This is a very important date. Oops. March through April, right now, is when you're going to get the financial aid award letters. This is the final report card, if you will, on determining if a college wants your son or daughter or not. Does anyone know what admit, deny is? Anyone ever heard that term, admit, deny? That's where a college will say, yes, your son and daughter is into my school. We send you an acceptance letter, but they offer you no financial assistance. That's called admit, deny. So what if your son and daughter applied to a $50,000 private school? And I don't know, let's say I'm a family making $50,000 a year. That's more than what I make a year. And their financial aid package comes in, and it's a $48,000 loan. You want to go there? Well, what if you already told them you went? You already told them you signed up. You need to wait till you get all the information back before you tell your son, before you tell these colleges where you're going to school. Does that make sense, guys? You don't want to be admit, deny. It's happened before one of my parents. So you have until May 1st before you tell a college where your son and daughter is going to school. Do you think most students wait till May 1st? Or parents wait till May 1st? No. When do they usually tell the college? Say that louder, please.
As soon as they get the acceptance letter.
Bingo. As soon as you get the acceptance letter, here's my check, I'm going to your school. Bingo. Boop. And the colleges go, yes, we got another one. Full pay. Why? Is there any incentive to get you into our school? Any incentive to write you a check? Do they need to recruit you? No. But if you have 6 to 10 of them, they don't know. Do you think the colleges know where your son and daughter applied to college? Yes, they do. Because on the back of the financial, you need to wait. Tell these where. Does that tell a college and daughter. Most students will May 1st. Parents wait to May 1st. Accept my check. Your school. Another one. Incentive. Get financial. You go to where this form is at. Where's my? These colleges, 6 son and daughter wants to go to. To Queens Community College, and so all then pay what I call so. But the thing you do some of these case studies. I want to talk about. Enrollment is the financial aid if the condition of the financial aid based on need or makes it's not based not merit based. Just government money out. Third, money. Merit so much. $1 million a year, still get money from these. Not required. Need-based. You don't class the football team. Putting the average knowledge is just the right way. You know,
So how do you?
how do you get that? Look at these cases. Answer some of your questions. Studies are studies. Days I could in each clients, you've got money. Financial. Write you a check because they're not for these. One, there's a marriage between the college and the college. Parents doing any. We're going to talk about some of the strategies. What we talked about, reduce this. Colleges scorecard. Well, did got 5, 6 other colleges. Say this is from Columbia. Smart girl. She wanted to when I first said I was going to get to school and went to school, 5 years. 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 5 years $100, have a whole saved up for what I use for. He said, what I have to do is reposition to make you look a lot less well, if you will. You don't want to show college you have all